Hello. Right, this is our Inspiring the Next CMO podcast series for Behind the Fluff podcast from the International Bunch. It's specifically for those in marketing, those interested in marketing, those in academic publishing, scholarly comms and libraries. Who are we going to be talking with today? Lisa Spicko. Lisa is an industry VP, and Lisa's going to talk with us about her love of all things awkward, how rummaging through microfiche and microfilm planted the seed to her future career with libraries. She'll also talk with us about advice that she gave to her early career self about not taking things so seriously. The older you get, you know the sun is going to rise tomorrow. Everything's going to be okay. That the giving of your time to mentor others is the greatest gift that you can give, the greatest currency. How the pandemic has left her in awe of people's ability to overcome all obstacles in order to put their families first. And what words she'll be taking back with her to the US from her time in Australia. So why don't we just go and jump straight in? Let's go.
Welcome everybody to our Behind the Fluff Inspiring the Next CMO podcast series. You can find lots of fantastic resources on our website, www.internationalbunch.com/inspiring the next CMO, and also /be inspired. Today, I would like to welcome Lisa Spicko. Now, Lisa is Vice President in the industry. So, hello, Lisa.
Hello. I'm so pleased to be here today, Lou. Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. I am absolutely delighted to have you here, especially because here I am in Wales in the UK. There you are in Melbourne, Australia. So, truly global.
Truly. I know. Now, even if I don't sound very Australian, I always let people down that way.
Well, I was just thinking before when we were speaking that because we're doing this while you're still in Australia, you'll look back at this in, say, like a couple of years when you're back in the US and you'll be like, oh, listen to my voice then, there's that twang of the Australian accent in there, or I said that word. So you'll forever remember what your voice was like when you were in Australia.
Great point. I'll try to insert heaps into this, and that will really make it authentic. Yes.
So before we get started, I've got one question for you. Now, something that we ask everyone before we start is that we have a campaign that we run called #IntBunch Word of the Day. And so we would love to know, what is your favorite word and why?
So, Mary Sour Games took one of my arguably favorite words, which is awesome, and that's fine. But my kind of next, I would say the next cab off the rank for me in terms of favorite word is the word awkward. I've always loved the word awkward, and I think because it's kind of onomatopoetic, right? I mean, it sounds every bit as awkward as it is when you look at the letters and how they come together, and it's just, to me, anytime I have an opportunity to use that or to type it, it always just kind of brings a smile to my face. So awkward would be my word.
Yeah,
hopefully it won't be too awkward today.
No, not at all. That is so true, because it is a random word when you think about how it's spelled. And it is, yes. It very much says what it is. When you hear awkward, you know exactly what that means.
Right.
Word to come up with. I love it.
Well, I'm glad that you asked. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Well, thank you, because we can pop that into our campaign, because I don't think we've covered that one yet.
Good. I was hoping to be original, too.
So first things first, we want to know a little bit more about you, of course. And so what is the best thing that you have discovered in this last very strange year that we've been living in as a pandemic?
Oh, gosh. I mean, it feels like there are so many ways to kind of take that question around, looking at personal resilience and respect and the opportunity to get to know people more deeply. I'll say that kind of my own personal areas of interest has been a rediscovery of classical music. And that's been largely as a result of my 14-year-old who is studying piano and is passionate about classical music. And so it's interesting. It had been years since I had really engaged with it. That has shown up with me. My other COVID habit is I learned how to knit. And I did a lot of it for the holidays, and that really helped during the 111-day lockdown that we had here in Melbourne last year. So I did a lot of knitting and made a lot of Christmas presents, and it was terrific. I felt good about it. I've got a new skill.
I love that phrase that you just coined, COVID habit. COVID habit. I think we've all had a COVID habit from the past year, definitely, at least once.
Yes, I completely agree.
So, who inspires you?
Oh, so this is tough because there are so many named individuals, people that I hold in really high respect. But as I really consider this, I come down to individuals that I know that show such bravery under the most challenging of circumstances. And I don't know that I've shared this with you previously, but both of my children are adopted from Guatemala. And so I always have, and I'm aware of some of the circumstances that Guatemalans and other peoples from Central America will experience, and having to flee their country. And I mean, and that's not just a Central America phenomenon. That happens in many places around the world. I think that people who are truly motivated to take that on and leave everything, leave family, leave support, move someplace else with the promise of a new life, doing it under the most challenging of circumstances, maybe not even understanding the language. I can't imagine the circumstances that get you to that point. It's unthinkable, and I'm so fortunate that it's unthinkable to me. But I can only imagine the level of bravery that it takes to do that. And then, how that manifests in sort of generations to come. Developing the resilience and the ability to kind of cope and ultimately not just survive but thrive. So I just think people that come through those kinds of unthinkable circumstances and are able to come out the other end of it, it just takes a level of courage and conviction that I can't imagine that I would ever have. But that to me is always something that really, really resonates. So not a particular person, but more kind of that type of behavior, I guess, that really speaks to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I completely agree with that. And you're right, it happens all over the world. And we have these refugees that, the even highly educated people and teachers and people of all different professions suddenly find themselves in war-torn situations or in terrible situations and have to leave their homes and literally have to walk to the next country and find themselves with absolutely nothing. And it's absolutely terrible. A couple of years ago, well, it's probably more than that now, probably about 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I remember at London Book Fair, at the conference, they had a librarian come and do a talk. And he had been at the University of Mosul. And when ISIS came in, they had to leave. And I think it's about 3 years he was a refugee. And they completely decimated the library, and they burnt it, and they burnt the books, and it was horrific. And he had come back with help from a charity to start rebuilding the library because the university students were starting to come back. And you're right, you see these people in these different situations, and the strength that they have as people is absolutely incredible. And I remember when he was speaking, I literally, tears are welling in my eyes because it's like, wow, what an incredible person. And we sometimes forget that that's even people that maybe we've known through our careers, and suddenly they're in a situation in the country and something happens and they just disappear and we'd never know.
That's right. Yeah. You're absolutely right. I'm fortunate, living here in Melbourne. I've met a number of people that, we live in a real melting pot, and it's wonderful, it's beautiful, and we've enjoyed it just so much, especially as a mixed race family. But you're right, people wind up opening up to you and you realize, wow, they've come here and they've left their families thousands of miles away. And they were working, and they might have been living really comfortably, and they may have had very professional careers, and then they take on something, and they're suddenly working odd jobs, and they're cleaning homes because they say, well, this is ultimately what we need to do to create a better living condition for our children and our children's children.
Yeah,
I think it's amazing, absolutely amazing.
Oh, I feel quite, like I need to breathe after that. We could get really heavy into that. We could really lights, couldn't we, with that one? So when you were young, what did you want to be?
Well, goodness, I'll say, it ran the gamut. I had really bad asthma when I was a kid, and it's very well controlled as an adult. But I mean, as a result, it just felt like I was continually, under the care of a doctor and frequent stays in the hospital and whatnot. And like I say, just, touch wood that it's been great as an adult. But that said, so I mean, I was initially really drawn to kind of the caregiving type of professions, potentially medicine, doctor, nurse, whatever. Then, I kind of got into high school and I decided that I really wasn't that interested in kind of science and, I a little fascinated with it, but it didn't really stick with me. Then I became interested in writing, and did a little bit of that. And I don't know, I mean, so where you start isn't often where you finish. And I try to tell that to my kids right now. There's a lot of career pathing, and to say, goodness, I had no idea then, and have gone through several stages of adulthood where you say, am I really working to my purpose? So
yeah, but you see, the thing is that as humans we live a lot longer now than we used to many years ago, and so if you wanted a career change halfway through your life, have a career change. My mother retrained, I think it was in her, must have been late 40s or early 50s. She retrained to be a solicitor. And she had been an interior designer before that. And so, she obviously then had to apply to solicitors, and she was up against people that had just left law school and, young people. But yeah, she got her, I don't think it's an internship, but she was, ended up with the solicitors and absolutely loved it and specialised in trusts. So the world is your oyster. You can do anything.
Absolutely amazing. Yeah, that's incredible. And you're right. I mean, it's you're not done until you're done, right?
Exactly.
As long as I'm learning something, I'm energized. That's the goal.
Yeah, exactly. So, if you were to have dinner tonight, well, and considering it's nighttime for you now, so literally you're going to leave here and go and have dinner. If you were going to have dinner tonight with anyone in the world from any time, whether they're alive or dead, who would it?
Oh, that's tough. That's really tough, especially when you talk about alive or dead. I mean, if I could do this, if I could really do this, it would be Frédéric Chopin. So, and this is kind of going back to that classical music theme that I was saying. And actually, I mean, as I think about it, he ties out to the kind of refugee. I mean, he left his homeland of Poland when he was 18, and he never returned. I think he went to Vienna, inspired by Mozart. He ultimately, lived in Paris. His heart is actually buried in, I think, the Church of the Holy Cross in Poland. I mean, he's a national hero there. But I would have him, and I would want to have like a really great piano at the ready, obviously, because I just enjoy his music, and it just brings forth every bit of kind of melancholy and longing about missing Poland, but also those points in time when he was in love and and joy. So I would hope that he would play probably Fantasy Impromptu. That's one of my favorites. And then the one that I'm still working on the piano is Nocturne, Opus 9, number 2. And I would have him play that for me as more inspiration than say, well, okay, I'll get close someday with more practice. So that's who I would invite to dinner.
Yeah, to have the master playing it, I mean, that's quite an incredible thing, isn't it?
Could you imagine?
Amazing. I mean, music is, sometimes I forget about music. And then I'll put on Spotify and I'll put on some random playlist. And then I'll just be like, I'll fall in love again. And every time I listen to something that I haven't listened to for ages, like I remember last night I was sitting on the sofa with my husband and I was talking about, I haven't I saw someone, I said, oh, that's the lead singer of 30 Seconds to Mars. Do you know who that is? And he was like, no. And so I played. He's like, oh, yeah, I know that song. And then I realised how much I loved that music. And so today I was like, I'm going to put the music on in the office. I'm probably going to be doing some data stuff. So it's great. I'm going to have it blaring out. Everyone in my neighbourhood is going to be listening to 30 Seconds to Mars. But yeah, I mean, I like you. I classical music is a beautiful, soulful music, and there are so many different types of classical music as well, and it's absolutely incredible, especially when you have so many instruments together and orchestras, and absolutely fantastic. And I did not know that about Chopin. And where's the rest of his body then, if his heart's in the church?
I think the rest of him is buried in Paris, where he died, to my knowledge. But yeah, there was a whole story. He was apparently terrified of being buried alive, and so he had apparently said to his sister, who was with him when he died, "Make sure that they cut me open and they take my heart." So they did, and there's this whole story about how she had to sneak it back into Poland, because I think that was under Russian rule at the time. Sneak it past guards. I think it was passed around members of the family. I mean, like, who knows, right? Mm-hmm. But then it was ultimately, it made its way to the Church of the Holy Cross. And then there was a bit of, I think, scientific work, and I think it was published in, the Journal of the American Medicine Association or something like this. Yeah. Ultimately, they went in and they examined it. They didn't touch it. They took hundreds of photos of it to try to figure out what his actual cause of death was. So there's, the whole, if all you have to do is a bit of research on Chopin's heart, and there's even, fairly recent scholarly articles written about it. So it's fascinating.
That's amazing. So, and I wonder if they are great examples, I have to look them up, if they're great examples of multidisciplinary authorship. So you've got authors from a historical side and authors from the scientific side, because I think it's fantastic when you see that kind of research coming out. Right. I love this because I feel a bit selfish, because when I do these podcasts, I learn so much. Because the Wayne Syme interview, he was talking to me about Henry VIII, and there was things I didn't know about Henry VIII. To be honest, I didn't pay a lot of attention later on in school. So you could probably teach me a lot.
That's very fun. But you're right. You just learn along the way. I love it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about your career. Now, tell me about your career and how you got to where you are today.
Okay. So, it started right after university, and my very first job was working at an instructional design firm. And what was interesting is I didn't realize at the time, I was working as an educational researcher. I was spending a lot of time in the university library, and I was the one that was sent to dig up things in the archives and go through the microfiche and microfilm and whatnot. And that was great. I really enjoyed it. But number one, it was a woman-owned business, which is fascinating. And this was quite a number of years ago. Mm-hmm. Number two, every member of this firm, and they were basically a consulting firm, either had their PhD in evaluation and measurement or instructional design. They all had their Masters of Information Library Studies, every single one of them. And I found this so interesting. And of course, I was spending a lot of time in the library. And so I worked for them for a couple of years in a different circumstance, then took me elsewhere. But it really planted the seed of what I could do with the degree, and it really provoked a very high interest in libraries, which I'd had. And I'd always been one to regularly go to the library and study at the library and whatnot, and do that all through university. But that really motivated me to pursue the degree. So I ultimately did that a couple of years afterward. Went on to the University of Michigan. And this is one of those just by chance situations where I got the last seat in a course that was taught at that point in time by the president of University Microfilms, Joe Fitzsimmons. Mm-hmm. And what was interesting is I had worked in a role where I was running an inbound marketing program for a firm that was doing work on behalf of Ford Motor Company in the Metro Detroit area. So I had kind of a business bent and business experience under my belt. And so as I was speaking with my counselor for that first term, she had said, you might really enjoy this class because it's really around the information industry. Well, that sounds interesting. That was it. So like I say, the last seat in that particular class, and that changed everything for me. Absolutely everything. We took a field trip by bus to OCLC. Amazing, right? And at that point, Joe brought in industry leaders like Roger Summit at the time, who was with Dialogue, Ann Hartman, who I think was with ABC Clio, other names that aren't coming to mind at the moment, but it was such a formative experience. And I did well in the class. The next term, I was offered an opportunity to intern at UMI, and that was it. So I finished the degree, and I've stayed effectively within this sector, serving libraries or focused on ed tech or focused on education, but something that always had the library at the center of it. So it went all the way back to that first role after university.
Wow.
There you go. Yeah. Interesting.
Very
interesting.
Absolutely fascinating. There's so many questions I could ask you there, but I think I would probably go on for a long time. But I think it's really interesting how you started your career in a firm that was woman owned, and I think was it all the employees were women as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
All of the employees were women.
And that's quite something. Even nowadays, that's quite something. I mean, if I look at like the international bunch, because we're marketeers, the three core members of the team are all marketeers. And then we have our freelancers to help us, but we're also all women. Now, that isn't because that's how I designed it. That's just because we did have a gentleman with us last year. And so that is just because our industry is predominantly female.
Right.
That's just the way that it is. But it's fascinating. I can imagine, and I obviously don't know the person that was running it, but I can imagine from what you said and what we've talked about before about that organisation, because just so everyone knows, I often chat to people before we have these, because sometimes it's people I haven't seen for a while and we just gossip for ages. Or sometimes it's just like you and I meeting for the first time and you were recommended to me, and we just gossip anyway because we get on so well. It was so easy. But what I sensed is that probably the person who originally when you started out was probably quite a strong individual.
Oh, very. Yeah, very. When I think of people who have had a really formative influence on my career, it really goes back to the president of the firm, the person that that onboarded me, and then certainly the other women with whom I worked. But absolutely, I mean, she was purpose-driven. She had exceptionally high standards. She really had a people-first orientation. If I think of kind of first mentor, it really begins with her. And it's interesting. I mean, I don't think I really understood at that time how unique an experience that was. But then, as you continue to move through your career, and I've worked at large organizations, not huge, but I mean large enough.
Well, big now.
Yeah, and bigger now, and about to be even bigger. That's right. but this was a small firm. It was a small business experience. But gosh, for my first experience out of university, it couldn't have been more formative. And we stayed in touch for years. She was interested to have me go on to the library science program where I was living at the time, and like I said, it didn't work out for a number of different circumstances, but was pleased to know that I took it up afterwards. And as I said to her, I never could have predicted how this one job made such a difference. No. You just don't know. You have to be open to it, right? You just have to be open to it.
Absolutely. You have to be open to it. And I think sometimes good or bad experiences, it doesn't matter. They all shape us as people, and you just have to learn from them. Absolutely. And I love that she was such an inspiration to you at the start of your career. I can certainly look back on my career and know of some key specific individuals who were incredibly inspirational to me, or had such a dramatic change in my mindset for career-wise that really changed me as a person, for the better, always for the better, that just empowered and enabled me to be like, yeah, I can do this.
Right.
What have you been most proud of in your career?
Most proud of? Oh my goodness. So that's, it comes back to probably the people that I've worked with. I mean, it kind of, it builds on what you were just describing, right? So you find those people who have personally influenced your career. They've been there for you when you needed it. They've helped to kind of show you the way. And so for me, any opportunity that I have, whether it's with members of my team, whether it's through mentoring, ProQuest has a wonderful mentoring program, and I've taken that up several years in a row now, and I've done it with previous employers and well in the past. I think that there's really nothing more important. And what I guess I'm proud of is where I feel that I'm able to just help make a difference, and giving your time. I mean, when I think of the greatest currency, the greatest gift that we can give is our time.
Yeah.
And sometimes, and this isn't to say, gosh, I have all the answers, because I certainly don't, but I have a listening ear, a listening ear. I will give you my time. We can talk through it. I'll continue to contemplate it, whatever the situation is. That to me is what makes the difference. I have a very good friend who uses the expression, when one rises, we all rise. And I have absolutely adopted that. I love that expression. Yeah. So I think that's what I'm most proud of, just the people that I've been able to kind of give that lift to along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Incredibly impactful on our lives. And, that really resonates with me when you think about time. And I think hindsight's a great thing. And we only really learn this as we get older, and we need to have the experiences to learn that we're sometimes so quick to give away time to things that we shouldn't give away time to, or people that we shouldn't give time away to, because we'll never get it back. But that's all part of the learning process, isn't it?
That's it, exactly.
My mum would certainly say that I probably had some boyfriends that I shouldn't have given any time to, but we all go through that.
Isn't that funny? Yeah, some of the relationships that you say, well, try to capture the learnings if you can, but maybe it's time to move on. And I remember getting some of that advice from my mother and thinking, why would you even say that? And then you look back on and you go, oh yeah, really? Really? Yeah, that's right. I guess she actually knew. Yeah.
95% of the time you realize your mother was actually right. And you're like, ow.
If not even higher. Completely. Yeah, completely agree.
I think I'll give myself 5%. I think it's also the defiance. I dated someone for about 4.5 years I really shouldn't have dated. My family were not pleased with me. But the more that they were displeased, the more I wanted to prove to them that I had made the right choice. They worked their magic in the end, my parents. They did a good job. They did work their magic in the end. They sent me off to university and I went, oh, this is life. This is fun. So, what have you found the most challenging?
The most challenging, okay, I put simply, I think to not let other people's preferences undermine my self-confidence.
Yeah.
That's really hard. I mean, we work with a whole range of people, right? And whether it's the people that are part of your immediate cohort, or it's your immediate manager, or someone in an even more senior level role, you may work for perfectionists. You may wind up working for people that micromanage you. I mean, I've been in both of those situations, right? I worked for people that didn't really listen. You would try to explain things, and they don't really listen. And what I have found is that in those situations, I will struggle to not let that undermine my better judgment.
Yeah.
And so, and it's not tied to gender. I've had this like I said, I've had this when I've reported to men and to women.
Yeah.
But I've experienced that same situation. So it's just, at the end of the day, coming back, and my husband is a great one to say, wait a minute, why are you agonizing over this? Don't you realize what do you think? I don't want to hear what this person thinks or that person thinks. What do you think? And helps to kind of pull me back to center, I guess. That to me has been a challenge that shows up and you go, okay, here we go.
What an incredible person to have in your life, because he obviously clearly values you as a person. And I think often in organisations, it's funny because I was talking to someone the other day who's really at the top of their game, but they said to me, I would have to get consultants in to advise on what was already my opinion, but I had to get someone externally. And that just shows sometimes that often people don't value the team that they already have and the opinions that are already there. And there should be more value and there should be more trust. And your husband fully knows how valuable you are as a person. And it's like, no, I want to hear what you've got to say. And I think that's incredibly important. And he's probably very, very important in terms of like your career and helping you to be more confident. Because often when we do these podcasts, maybe you're going to say the same later when I ask this question, but when I do ask people about what would you tell your early career self, I think pretty much everyone has talked about confidence. Yeah. And I think it's something that, we don't have as when we're younger in our earlier career, or it doesn't matter what age you are, it's the age of not the age of you as a person, but the age of your career. So in terms of that, and so it's a very interesting area, and what a very special person he is.
I really appreciate you saying that, and you're right. I know that I can go to him and I can say I'm really struggling with this particular situation, and he will, he'll come back and he'll give me the hard talk where he'll say, I don't even know why you're debating this, and so it kind of stokes me up, and you say, well, okay, actually, it's like it shakes me out of whatever clouded vision I have. I don't know. I'm not sure what it is, but he can, spouses can communicate in really direct ways, and he will do that with me at times when he'll say, just stop it.
But he knows how to communicate with you, doesn't he? And I think that also goes to a point about when you sometimes work with people that aren't listening to you, it's because you're not communicating in a way that they will listen to you. And that often the way that you have to communicate with them is a bit alien to you. But that's right. It's about working out how can I communicate with this person in a way that I just give them information that's effective and they just take it and run with it. And that's a real challenge in itself. And I think
it sure is.
Yeah. No, it's absolutely fascinating. What a fantastic chat. It makes me think about my husband like that as well. And I think if we're lucky to have people in our lives that we can talk to in that respect, I think that's a very, very, very important thing, to have a sounding board that brings you back down to earth as well. I mean, we're all unique in what we do, and I've had experiences. We could have the same conversation with the same person at the same time, but our experiences are different. So we're all incredibly unique. We bring so much uniqueness to the table. But that question you get in interviews, tell me, why are you unique? Like, because I'm me. Because there's no other me out there. No one can replicate me, can't replicate you. We are very special and very unique as individuals.
I won't ask you that at the end then.
Yeah, exactly. Cross that off if you were going to ask me that.
That's right.
So now, being VP of marketing, what's your ultimate career goal? CEO?
Oh, yeah, heavens no. Yeah, and it's funny. I mean, in the course of my career, I've never had one of those, okay, I'm here and now I want to be here by this age and whatnot. I've known people that have sort of, charted their life that way, and that's great. Yeah. I've never been wired that way. For me, I always, there's the cat. He wants to get in.
We were waiting for that.
Yeah, don't know if you can hear him.
Yeah, now he's
in.
Oh,
that all pandemonium it'll all be done.
Plant that you rescued just beside you there with the one flower that it's finally, because so everyone, Lisa had gone to a depot store and had found this plant that was looking a bit miserable, and there you see this beautiful flower on it, but her cat is a plant killer. If she lets him in, he'll be like,
that's it exactly. Yeah, so we're not going to do that because it will get ugly. And let's face it, I've already nursed this one to solid health, so I'm not going to do that. Anyhow, I apologize for the interruption there, but
it's normal nowadays, isn't it? That's the great thing. It shows it's human.
That's how it goes when you're working at home. That's right. No, I think so. So to answer your question, kind of ultimate career goal. For me, it's always around just wanting to find an opportunity to make a difference. And that is, making a difference either with the people who are members of my team, those people with whom I'm working most closely, making an impact on my business, the organization that I'm serving, and hopefully helping others to achieve the best results possible. You and I share a bit of experience within kind of the scholarly space and library space, and I think that that's part of what has always drawn me to this sector, this education. I sort of put all of these ed tech into kind of the same big bowl. Yeah. And I look at that as a sector where fundamentally people come together because they believe in the value of information and education and making resources available and the power that has, the transformative power that it has to generate really positive outcomes in people's lives. So, so for me, the passion has always been around this sector, this industry. I love marketing, don't get me wrong. Yeah. I don't know that I would have the same passion if I were working in, I don't know, well, maybe travel and tourism. I'm not sure about that, though, really.
If you got to travel, maybe.
Yeah, but like working for Kraft Foods or something like that, that's not it. This library experience from where I started out, I mean, that's really, that's what's in my DNA, I think. And so the career goal is just to continue to help and to serve, and what the next role is, I don't know, but I'm always looking for opportunities to learn, and I have that in heaps. There, I worked in the word. I have that in heaps right now at Innovative. So,
oh, fantastic! Yeah, it's an incredible sector when you work with libraries. I absolutely love information professionals and librarians, and I just think they're absolutely an amazing community. And when I took some time out following redundancy, and I just needed a career break because I had just been working some obscene hours, so I didn't get made redundant, but then I got made redundant, so no for me there, or for me, and I missed it so much. I'm literally, my heart pined for 6 months for libraries, and so I came back. I just thought, I think for many of us, and it's funny when we talk about, because one of my things is the value of marketing departments in organisations, and it's an area that I'm going to look into more, and how marketing is valued, but it goes for many departments. And I think it's very interesting sometimes when you look at some academic institutions, for example, and how the library is valued in the institution, or how undervalued it is. Yes. And it is an absolutely integral resource and an incredible community. Fantastic.
Completely agree.
So if you weren't doing your role now, and money was absolutely no object, wouldn't that be great?
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness. So, I kind of paused on the whole travel tourism thing because, that would be, of course, we've all been kind of confined to quarters or confined to our landmass and whatnot. Yeah. But, so love travel, love cultural experiences and whatnot. And I always find that kind of takes me out of my box in really, really good ways. And I've had the good fortune to be able to do some of that, not near as much. Life is short, and it seems like that and resources are usually at odds. In the absence of having to worry about money, I think that could be one passion. The other passion is honestly growing things. And this is crazy. I mean, I've always just left a trail of plants wherever I live, or wherever I work. And I bring them into the office and find the sunny windowsill. And then, come summer, take them back, put things out on the deck, and then come fall, okay, I'm continually potting and repotting. So there's something about that, maybe I will go back and get a degree in horticulture. I don't know, but yeah. So one of those two.
Well, yeah, I mean, it might mean that you have to do a bit of science. Which
well, that's right.
In high school went, no.
I know, exactly.
So, but
I know, that's right. But somehow, when you take that on as an adult and you realize, okay, you have to get through it, and this, I could probably do it now, but we'll see.
What do you do then with your plants when you move back to the US? What are you going to do with all your plants?
Well, that's just it. So, I've already started talking to the neighbors here to sort of see, do you have an interest in houseplants? Oh, I don't have a whole lot of room. And, right now we're under lockdown in Melbourne, and a very close friend who has a green thumb and said, yes, I will take all the plants, is unfortunately outside of my 10-kilometer range. And I'm not sure that I can work out a transport to go one person to the edge of one boundary and then to the next. So we'll have to see. Hopefully this will be lifted so we can get together and I can bequeath the plants. But otherwise, I will find homes for them, because I'm kind of that way.
As we say here in the UK, a man in the van. That's what you need, a delivery driver, because they will be unrestricted. So he comes, you put them all in.
Now that's okay. Now, Lou, that's a clever.
See, I have solved your conundrum for you.
I was just going to say, I'm going to make a note about that. That could work. Thank you, Lou.
That would absolutely work. Okay, so now I ask this question, and sometimes people will say to me, well, when I say which inspiring 3 professional books would you say are a must read? And why? Some people say, well, do you know what? I don't read that many professional books. So here are my 3 books. So they can be professional, they can be, not professional, whatever you think would inspire people.
Okay. So, I have good friends that are avid readers and I mean, just kind of gobble up professional books. And I've always wanted to be that person. I'm not. I'm just not. But I will invest the time when I sort of hear from close colleagues, people that I respect, oh my gosh, this is a must read. Yeah. So I work from the power of reference of those people that I really respect. Yeah. And so 3 titles come to mind for different reasons. So the first is The 5 Dysfunctions of Team by Patrick Lencioni. Are you familiar with that?
No.
So it's a leadership fable. It's a quick read, but it also comes along with a lot of support material. And it really talks about building first leadership teams, right? And having a shared mindset and how everybody kind of shows up from different departments, from marketing, from finance, from product, and so forth, with different perspectives. And what's so poignant about it is that it is a leadership fable. So, I mean, it's really easy to read. But there's lots of video resources. There's human resource facilitation packets. So if you go through this as a leadership team, you can then have the very deliberate, how do you take these things and apply it within your leadership cohort. So that to me that's been a go-to for years, and I think I've probably purchased close to a dozen copies of it. And anytime that an aspiring manager has an interest in it, I give it away. So that's just kind of a favorite to have at hand and give away.
Well, you should have an affiliate link, shouldn't you? And you just send them the link, and then you'll start earning commission.
yeah, exactly. That's a great idea. They could finance my plan habit.
Here, buy your own. But here's the link to make it easy. By the way, it's an affiliate link, but that's fine.
Let's see. Number 2 is one that I've read a couple of times, and I'm reading it now. It's called The First 90 Days, Critical Success Strategies. Familiar with that book? So Michael Watkins. So I like professional books where, like, here's the model, here's the scenario, and here's how you can begin to take this and apply it. And of course, I've taken up a new role as VP of Marketing at Innovative. It's great. And I'm working those suggested strategies around your 30, 60, 90, because it, whether you're brand new to a role or you're new to a team, you're taking on something. I just think it's a great reference. I worked for a reference publisher for a number of years, and I think I kind of have this orientation around how can I take assets like this and kind of use them as ready reference tools for myself. So I love that book based on that particular situation. The last one is a book that was recommended to me by someone that I mentored a couple of years ago. And it was something that she wasn't that familiar with. She had started to read it and said, hey, maybe this would be something for us to engage with. Excuse me. And now I regularly suggest this with people that I mentor. It's called How Women Rise. It's by Sally Helgeson, I think is the last name, and Marshall Goldsmith. Yeah, Goldsmith, I think. And it discusses the 12 habits that hold you back. So whether you're looking to advance in your career, you're trying to earn a promotion, you feel that you're stuck, you're not getting recognition, and it's really written specifically around women. The mentoring program that we have at ProQuest is broader than women, but it had initially started as a women's mentoring program. And it just so happens that I'm mentoring. I've mentored women this year and certainly in the past. It's really a helpful read. It's another one of those that here's the scenario, here's kind of the case study, and here were some of the impacts, and here were the learnings, and it's broken into these 12 habits that literally for the person I'm mentoring now, we're going through these. Next week we're going to talk about habit 6, and we will go through and kind of unpack it. So I find that it's another one of those references that I kind of have it at hand, flip through it, you recognize the behavior, and it generates some awareness. So those would be my 3 from someone who, again, I'm admittedly not a really avid reader of professional titles, but when I find something, I'll engage with it deeply based on reference, and then I kind of put it into my circulating list.
Fantastic. That last one sounds really, really interesting. I love ones that give you examples and like case studies and things in it. So it shows you it in practice and shows you how you can learn from it. And that works better for me in that sense, because I think I'm quite a visual person sometimes, so I can visualize things in my head better.
Yes.
So what is your most favorite book or podcast or blog?
Oh, favorite blog. So I read 2 religiously, and I think it's kind of a tie. I have a hard time picking one over the other. I like them for different reasons. So the first is Adapt, Lead, Succeed. That's the blog by Linda James Gilbo. I was going to say, you must know Linda.
Well, of course. And Linda's going to be doing one of these hopefully in the future. So
good.
Yes. And Linda has been excellent at recommending people to me. She gave me a massive list. But yes, Linda was the senior lead in the marketing team at ICS.
Okay, there we go. So of course, during your time at ProQuest, so that makes perfect sense. Of course. So I love her style of reading. So I'm sure that you read the blog. I love her writing style. I feel like I can hear her saying the words, right? So I mean, but even if you don't know Linda, I can't recommend that highly enough. It's a quick read. There's always things that I take from it, a couple of nuggets, and every time it lands in my inbox, I send it out to others. I have just like a regular distribution of people that I will send. So highly recommend that for the insights and something to revisit over and over. The other one that I like is the Tignum Thoughts blog. Now, Tignum came and presented at one of the ProQuest sales conferences a couple of years ago. And the blog offers insights on sustainable human performance. I'm going to underline the word sustainable, okay? Mm-hmm. It's about kind of coaching, recommended practices. It has a really strong well-being element to it, which I like. And it talks a lot about balance. And, they made this point about how you have to have times that you give yourself a break. you can't always be in the sprint. You can't always be running the marathon.
Yeah.
That level of performance isn't sustainable. And so they talk about the importance of recharging. And I think especially in light of what we've gone through with COVID and with lockdowns and what can feel like just a 24-hour work cycle, that blog has been a really important reset to say, okay, maybe you're not going into the office, maybe you're working in a different situation. We're all having to juggle, and you need to find ways to make sure that you can show up as your best self. And you have to figure that out, and you have to make the space to do that. So really recommend the Tignum Thoughts blog.
Fantastic. Now, anything that we talk about when we do these podcasts is that we always include the link in the description.
Perfect.
I'll say, I'll do this for those who are watching the video, so that you'll know that they are below. But of course, there's a transcription, so they'll be hyperlinked in the transcription, and then they're available in the description for the audio as well. No, they're fantastic, and Linda's incredible actually, and she was a really inspirational marketing lead as well. And I often post on LinkedIn a link to the post. I often see in the comments such good feedback, different types of people in terms of their careers. So some from marketing, some from sales, some from different parts of the business. So really, really interesting.
Exactly.
So if you could travel back in a time machine, one day you will have one, I'm sure, what would you tell your early career self?
I would say, first off, stop taking everything so seriously. So seriously. You develop, I think, greater perspective the older that you get, the more that you kind of mature in life and just as an adult and in work. You start to realize that, the sun is going to rise tomorrow. It's going to be okay. Things wind up working out. But to not take things so very seriously and to give myself a break. So I think that would be kind of one bit of advice. The other would be, find your self-confidence and hold on to that. And this goes right back to kind of where we had started. Don't let that diminish, and find what is really true and authentic for yourself, and nurture that. Don't let that erode. Don't let anybody compromise that.
Yeah. Or if you do, recognize it and then stop it.
Yeah. That's right. That's it. Exactly. Yes.
So what's the best piece of advice that you have ever been given?
Oh, so this was advice from my father, and he would say something like, you're going to make messes and you're going to make a lot of mistakes in your life, and that's okay. Just clean them up. Clean up your messes. And I remember at the time I didn't really understand, I didn't get it, but he would reinforce this. And even after I, started a career and whatnot, he would say that to me: don't ever assume that you won't make mistakes, because you will. And if you're going to make a mistake, you might as well make a big one, right? But you just have to make sure that what you do is then go in, hold yourself accountable, and do what you can to try to clean it up, right? To try to make it right. Learn from it. Don't miss the opportunity to learn from it. So that to me has been a sort of repeated phrase that I've used, and I try to use that with my boys as well. You're going to make mistakes. Just clean them up.
Exactly.
And clean up your mess too. Clean up the kitchen too.
Yeah, exactly. And your bedroom.
And your bedroom, yeah, that's right. I need to have a meeting at your desk under your loft, so clean it up. True.
Very pretty with your single flower that's blooming.
Thank you.
And that's quite an accomplishment for that plant. So, you'll have to somehow ship it to the US with you. You're probably attached to it.
I'll have to find somebody really special to assume ownership, right?
Exactly. So, what is your number one tip for anyone working in marketing right now?
Oh, I think there is no limit to what we can understand about our customers. I don't dispute, we spend a lot of time, we look at our analytics, right? I think that's hugely important. You need to know what channels are working. That's essential. You need to test your messaging. I mean, all of these things are at the heart of it. But at the end of the day, let's remember the customer. Let's make sure that the customer is at the center of everything that we're doing, whether we're solving their problems, the ways that we're trying to communicate with them. Let's remember that they're human beings. I think that's part of what has been, COVID has just been such an amazing experience for all of us around the world. Amazing in really bad ways, I understand, and there have been positives coming out of it too. But I think we've had this really unique shared experience with our customers, and if anything, we've been able to show ourselves to them more authentically. We've been able to engage in discussions with them that were fundamentally around what can we do to meet the needs right now. So let's not get away from that. So that would be my advice to any marketer. Just don't ever feel that you know everything about your customer, because there's always more to learn.
Absolutely. And as I talked about earlier about the uniqueness, they are human at the end of the day. They are each person, so you'll never learn everything about them. And we can do personas to get a rough idea of what someone is like. But I am sometimes surprised when I speak to some marketers who have not had the opportunity to actually meet the people that they're targeting. And they don't actually know any of them on a personal level. I haven't met them face to face, especially in the last year, but usually it's at conferences. And but they're producing marketing collateral and marketing communications for people that they don't know. But I think you're absolutely right. That more authentic side has been so apparent in this past year, and that more human side. And customer is centric. Customer is everything, of everything that you do. And more authentic communications, because that resonates more. We're a lot more empathetic than we used to be, but we're also a lot more aware. And so, I don't want to swear here. I'm terrible for swearing. You're very lucky. You have like an explicit tag on it. Maybe I'd get my video editor to put like a beeper across my mouth with like.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, I'll just say it. They can see through the bullshit. So
that's right.
So that more authentic, proper communication is so important nowadays. So completely. What do you miss most since we've been in this COVID-19 pandemic?
What I have missed most is what I would describe as coffee talk in the morning with work colleagues, and whether it's we're going to go and get a coffee together, or we're going to come back and sit in kind of a commons area, or sit in an office with a friend. It's that casual conversation. It's the spontaneous insights that occur. It's, what happened last night. It's, it's the silly, and it's also the, like, oh, actually I was thinking I wanted to ask you, and things that can also just kind of come up serendipitously. I suppose that's a long-winded way of saying just like the casual contact. I think the closest that we get now is potentially signing on for web-based meetings early. So if you jump into the meeting room a few minutes early, then you can have like the pre-chat with folks. And then, and that doesn't have to be on topic. So it's the, oh, I love the blouse that you're wearing, or, or what project are you working on over here? Or, you just have an opportunity to kind of engage in the conversation that you would have done so very naturally had you been, sitting face to face. Just amazing. Yeah. That's what I miss. That's what I miss. Linda wrote a great blog about missing seeing people's shoes. Did you see this? I think it was her blog from earlier this week. Okay, you'll have to give it a quick read. But just talking about, I miss seeing people from their head all the way down to their shoes. And I think that she says, and there are some people that I work with that have great shoe collections, and that is true. I'm not one of them, but there are several that come to mind and think, oh yeah, that's right. I used to love just seeing like the style that this person had and what they were going to show up wearing today, and those shoes. Yeah. So yeah, that kind of exemplifies it.
I mean, we are all remote workers at the International Bunch, and I have been remote working since probably about 2012, I think it is. And so that's nearly just 9 years. So it's been a long time since I've been in the office and stood at the kitchen making a drink, at the sink. And then someone comes in and goes, "Oh no, someone's eaten my lunch," when they open the fridge and their lunch is gone. And then it's like the hunt for who's stealing the food or whatever, and it's big office news and office politics and stuff. Oh dear. So yeah, I when you started talking about when you go and get a coffee, you're like, remember those times you used to go to the vending machine and stand there and getting your water or your coffee and just chatting about But I do love that. And I think that's a really important. Not that we have had so many key takeaways from this, but one of a great one is, if you're not going from meeting to meeting to meeting, log on to a meeting early and just have that bit of chit chat, which means that when you do get to the time, you can go straight into the meeting with business as usual. But there are lots of things that organisations are going to say, cut your meetings down. So instead of it being half an hour, be 20 minutes or 25 minutes. Have a hard stop. Make sure that you're having a break between meetings. I mean, I often speak to people, and you will, and you'll do it yourself, and I do it myself. It's like you're literally going from one meeting to another meeting to another meeting. And it's relentless sometimes. When it's digital, you're not walking between. You are, there.
Exactly. No, completely agree. I love that as a takeaway. Completely.
So, is there anything you want to ask me?
Well, I would, yes. So you strike me. I don't know you very well, Lou, but as I told you at the beginning, any friend of Zoe Loveland's is a friend of mine. And as it turns out, we have more people in common than that. But so I don't know you very well, but I sense that you're a very artistic person. And, we all kind of express ourselves artistically in different ways. So I wanted to ask you, how do you do that?
Yeah. Now, I sometimes ask people to tell me the question before, just so I don't sit here and go, because sometimes some people ask me things that really throw me. But you did mention before when we chatted about this artwork behind me.
Yes.
So these two are my 3-year-old daughter, but they were from first lockdown when she was 2, and she was putting Post-it notes all over my wall, so I put them. Let's see, that hand there. And then this one is some artwork. And then this one is one of my dogs that passed away in October. On the day that she passed away, I got her pouring some paint and just put that on paper.
Whoa.
So they're her paw prints. And then I flicked her paw like this, and she had like a spray, and she was just like, "What are you doing?" She was a Scotty dog, like, really? So yes. So how do I?
It's beautiful.
How do I creatively express myself? I think music, actually, even when I'm sitting here in the office and I don't care if people hear me and I cannot sing. People say, "Oh, people just say that." And you're like, "Okay." And then you go on karaoke and they go, "You cannot sing." And you're like, "Oh, I told you." So that kind of not caring. But if it was artistic wise, actually, one of the times that I was made redundant, because I've been made redundant twice, is I retrained and I learned silversmithing and leatherworking, and became a leather worker. And I can make dog collars and leaves and belts and all that kind of, lots of different things.
Oh my gosh.
And I've got so busy building up my company that I haven't been able to express myself in any type of way. And now my daughter is 3. I sat here the last week and thought, you know what, I've got plenty of room, I've got a big office here, this is our head office, I've got a big office here, I'm going to get the work table out, I'm going to get all my leather tools around neatly, and then I can do stuff like that with her. And that's a really nice thing that we can do together, and make Christmas presents, because you were talking about knitting, all these presents and things that you make, and save ourselves a fortune at Christmas and birthday.
That's right. Yes.
Leather in the cupboard. So that's some ways that I do it. And the other way, when I get time, this is a secret passion of mine, that I've always wanted to learn how to DJ and make music. And house music is a particular love of mine. So my husband for Christmas bought me a deck. And so I've got to learn how to DJ, and that would be a great way of expressing myself and making music. So when I get time, sometime, I'm going to put myself in a DJ course. Probably going to have to be up here in the office, because otherwise, my daughter's really interested in learning as well. She's only 3, and I'm like, I could live myself, my dream of being a DJ through my daughter. I won't live it. Because my dream is that when I'm in my 80s, I'm going to be a DJ granny. And I'm going to be going to, all these different places, and I'm going to get up stage and this 80-year-old woman's going to be there going, come on. That's my retirement dream.
I love that. I'm really grateful that you shared, the leather work, and there is something that is deeply gratifying about working with your hands.
Yeah.
And I have a very close friend here, and she does a lot of work with natural fibers, natural materials, and I mean, she weaves, and she has her whole coronavirus basket projects, heaps of baskets that she's made. And there is, and she had talked about this, working with your hands like that for her is the release. And I think that was in part what kind of motivated me to maybe take up knitting. I'd always wanted, I didn't know how to knit. I ordered a kit that actually came from the UK when we were headed into lockdown. And then I just took to it, and I thought, this really is rewarding, like just watching that I'm making something. So working with your hands, whether it's like you were describing with leather work, it's digging in the plants, it's knitting, whatever. There is something that, I can find that really fulfilling as well. And you rock on, DJ Granny. Like, that's awesome. I love that.
I might not wait till my 80s. I might want to be a bit more nimble and stuff, have to get up the stairs right up to the top of the stage. I have this visual grandeur in my mind that I'm going to be like DJing to hundreds, thousands of people.
That's hilarious. You got to be able to make it up to the balcony to see everybody on the dance floor. That's right. That's right.
My arm up, So.
Oh my gosh.
So Lisa, I want to say thank you so much for joining us today. It has been an absolute delight, and it has been a real hoot. Now, before we finish, is there any other Australian terms that you just want to put in there?
Oh my gosh, I know. I was going to say I used heaps a couple of times. I should have asked you at the outset, like, how are you going? Because I have actually adopted that, but now I realize that, okay, I'm going to have to unwind that, because that doesn't necessarily, fly everywhere else. Although I now understand it a bit more. And I guess the last thing I would say is no worries. And people use no worries all over the world, right?
Yeah.
But I think that it was really born here in Australia. And I think that culturally, Aussies live it. They really do. And what a blessing and a privilege to have lived here and, be a part of this culture that just has helped me to, begin to chill out a little bit and not take things so seriously. And just amazing. So I'll take those expressions, but even more importantly, the entire experience and the meaning, with me.
Well, my challenge to you, Lisa, is when you're back in the US, every now and again, you should just throw a term in, one that you've, a phrase from Australia, just to see. Now, we have here in the UK for many, many years, long running, we have had 2 Australian soaps, Home and Away and Neighbours. And I used to, until probably just a few months ago, literally watch them religiously, unless when I didn't live in the UK and I lived in Malta, and they had a Neighbours that was like 5 years behind the one that I just left in the UK. There's a character on one of those on Home and Away, Alf Stewart, who comes out with the most amazing Australian terms that we hear in the UK here, like you're flaming galah and stuff like that. And I'm so sorry for any Australians that just heard me try to do that accent. But we hear like some of the stuff he said, and it's absolutely hilarious. We're like, oh, I love it. But yeah, so I have a whole Australian, an Australian dictionary that was given to us when we moved here. And I remember thinking, really, is that necessary? And I can't tell you the number of times that I've flipped through it because I thought, what did that mean? What did that mean? And then after a while, you realize, okay, I no longer need it. So
you know,
think
it is amazing.
That needs to be added into this description. So do you remember what it's called?
I think it's called the Strayan Dictionary, Strayan, the Strayan Dictionary. And it features words like Arvo, you know, and of course Avo, because Aussies are really big with Avo on toast. Yeah, and Arvo for the afternoon.
Of course. Yeah.
Avocado, Avo, yeah, that's right. You know, everything is shortened.
Yes.
So last point, my oldest son's name is Matthew. And but we've called him by his birth mother, the name that his birth mother gave him, which was Carlos. But when we got here, he said, I'm going to use Matthew. I'm like, okay, that's fine. Go ahead and use Matthew. All he's been called is Matt the entire time we've been here. And he's like, well, nobody will call me Matthew. And I said, well, you know, you can try again when we go home. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. I have friends who are called like David, and people will automatically turn it to Dave, and they don't like that. They want to be David. So, yeah. I think sometimes we do that habitually. But it's been absolutely brilliant talking to you, Lisa. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today.
Lou, the pleasure was all mine. This was just such a bright spot in the day, and I've loved every minute with you. And thank you so much for the opportunity. And just what a gift to take the time. I've loved today's conversation, but equally just the opportunity to kind of reflect on the career and you know, have a chance to kind of share some of that and engage in discussion. So a really precious time. I really appreciate it.